Star Trek Discovery. When I first heard about new Star Trek, I was cautious to show optimism. At that time, the Kelvin timeline was already a bust for me. I had somewhat enjoyed the first one when I completely shut down my brain, and I couldn't stand the following to it all. Also, Star Wars had recently started coming out with new movies, starting with A New Hope, then the decent enough Rogue One. Finally, Independence Day 2 was a complete kick in the gonads, but the only good thing about it was that it was able to kill off that Stargate reboot they had talked about. I digress. From the frivolous outfits, which seemed to be more in line with Sylvester McCoy than a time just before Captain Kirk, to the revamping of a rejected concept for the refitted Enterprise, I just couldn't bring myself to look forward to the show. Since I plan on reviewing the show again after watching a fair chunk of older Star Trek, I feel that I should at least outline my thoughts on Discovery now to see how my opinions may change over time. I'm going to focus on a few things: the storyline, the characters, the aesthetics and look of the show, and ultimately how it fits into continuity. Now, the storyline. The bare-bones storyline of the entire show is that it's the redemption of a fallen Starfleet officer. Now that's a Star Trek. It's a very Star Trek theme. Michael Burnham leads a mutiny against her beloved captain in an effort to protect the Federation from a perceived threat. She is court-martialed, sent to prison, and that is that. Or so it seems. She is eventually saved in a botched prison transport by the USS Discovery, and eventually takes on a role as the security officer, or non-officer because she's not technically a part of Starfleet at that time, on board the ship. They have misadventures like all Star Trek ships do. They save space whales, get stuck in a time loop, and rescue Ambassador Sarek. Along with Burnham's redemption, the show focuses heavily on the development of a spore drive, which can teleport a ship almost instantaneously. Albeit, the initial focus on that was just a few episodes in the beginning of this season. This is about as Trek of a main story point as any series we've ever had, although the show doesn't delve into any sort of moral dilemma concerning this spore drive, maybe in the beginning when the tardigrade was there, but not so much after that. However, the development of the spore drive, along with its testing and usage in the first half of the season, is complemented by a Klingon Federation war that the Federation is pretty much losing the entire time. The Klingons somehow have cloaking technology from a ship presumably older than even the Romulans from Star Trek Enterprise. This wreaks havoc on Starfleet. My pre-TOS history is admittedly a little rusty, so I might have missed something when Kirk talked about how the Federation nearly lost a war to the Klingons just a decade prior. In fact, there isn't much to say about the whole Klingon aspect that hasn't been beaten to death by other people. They look like generic alien-goblin hybrids. They talk with cotton balls in their mouths. You have to have subtitles to understand them. They are divided, then united, then divided, yet they still manage to beat the piss out of the Federation the entire time. They have cloaking technology, at a time before even Kirk was surprised by it. Then there's the Federation, which seems to be more similar to the TNG-era Federation than the TOS era. Kirk seemed to be more part of a military than Picard did, although it could be argued that this was the case after Kirk's Starfleet managed to just barely get out of a massive war. I suppose the biggest problem I have is that the Federation manages to lose so badly to the somewhat not united Klingons. In fact, for the point being made so clear that Kor took over to unite the houses, there isn't much in the way of politics after he is killed on the Klingon side. Even then, the UFP consists of hundreds of worlds and species who have jointly advanced their culture for over 100 years, while the Klingons have, turned into the Kazon? Is that what they're supposed to be at the start of this show? Because they seem remarkably close. But the story is set up in a weird way, because while the war takes place over the entire season, it is interrupted halfway through by a jaunt into the Mirror Universe. I've never been a big fan of the Mirror Universe concept after the original series, because the thing is so implausible that it doesn't make too much sense for anything other than the telling of a specific story. In that case, it was Kirk surviving Opposite Day. I was initially soured to the idea of DS9 revisiting it a few times because of this. But the revisits were not the worst episodes ever, and did at least touch on the subject that there were living versions of lost loved ones that existed somewhere, which plays a role in Discovery as well,